This episode is brought to you by the Thrive Tribe. Check it out at chasingbrighter.com/Thrive Tribe. Welcome back. Today's episode is personal, it's emotional, but honestly, it's long overdue. Because here's the truth: American mothers are some of the unhappiest in the developed world. And no, it's not because we're ungrateful or not doing enough. It's because we're doing too much, caring too much, being asked to give and give without support, without pause, and without acknowledgement. From the outside, it might look that everything's under control, but behind the scenes, there's mental load, this invisible, relentless checklist that never turns off. We're not just keeping everyone alive, we're managing schedules, our own careers, remembering birthdays, signing permission slips, checking emotionally temperatures of the household, and trying to anticipate everyone's needs, often before they even know they have them. It's costing us. So if you've ever asked yourself, why am I so tired when I haven't even left the house? Or why do I feel like I'm losing myself in the middle of caring for everyone else? This is the episode for you. Let's talk about the truth behind motherhood in America and what happens when we stop carrying it all alone. All right, just to give everyone a little bit of background and put some context in this, although we all may know some of these things, there was a study in 2016 from the Council of Contemporary Families that found that mothers in the US report significantly lower levels of happiness compared to moms in countries like Norway, Portugal, and Canada. And why is that? Let's talk about some of those reasons, especially a few of the major ones that keep coming up again and again. The first one is that American mothers are raising children in a system that doesn't often support them. There's little paid leave, there's limited access to affordable childcare, and a culture that glorifies exhaustion. And in many ways, it sucks because it's like we're being set up to feel like we're going to fail. Yeah, I remember I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college, and people still take a break. Shops close for 1 hour, 2 hours, and it was so crazy to me as an American where we work all the time. And I would talk to people from other countries, and they'd be like, "Oh, we get 3 months vacation, 4 months vacation, all this vacation." I was like, "What are you even talking about?" And it was the first time I realized how American culture is so much about producing, and so that is
Yeah.
not setting up a system to support mothers. The other kind of main reasons we're talking about is that there is such a deep, relenting pressure to do it all, right? We need to be the gentle parent, make organic lunches, crush it at work, volunteer at school, keep our marriages alive. And don't forget, we also have to look amazing while we're doing it. We have created this motherhood model that is impossible to sustain, and we can't live up to it. We feel like we're failing, right? Which is causing those feelings of unhappiness. And finally, what we really want to talk a lot about today is the mental load, because it's real. Even in households where partners are involved, it's usually moms who are managing the calendar, remembering the birthday party gift, scheduling the dentist appointment, and noticing when the laundry detergent is low. Around that time when that study started coming out, 2016, 2017, is when I started creating my own practice. And that's when I started hearing the word mental load. Even
Mhm.
today, almost 10 years later, I have clients who are experiencing this and feeling crazy, and they'll come in and I'll say, "Have you heard of the mental load?" And it's like they had never heard of that, and that just blew their mind and really resonated with exactly how they were feeling, and they didn't realize that is what was going on.
So let's talk about what mental load is. It refers to this invisible, ongoing, often overwhelming mental effort of managing the household and family life. And it just feels like it's there. And sometimes it's hard to even put a word to it. So it's not just doing the thing, it's remembering to do the thing, which I hate, which is so much of what my own mental load is. You're
Mm.
adding this weight of the things you need to remember to do. It's tracking school day, school spirit days or dress up days, field trips, planning meals, managing your family calendar, sports, who's going where, when, noticing what's things are getting low in your house, whether it's paper towels or toilet paper, buying birthday gifts for kids and wrapping them, all the things that just fly through our head at any given time. And then thinking about the future. Right now, my mental load a little bit is even summer camps, like what my kids are
Yeah,
going to be doing
I
for the summer,
know.
even though it's 6 weeks away.
Mm.
The mental load is constant. It's often this invisible thing to anybody around us. And in most families, especially in heterosexual households, it disproportionately falls on women.
Yeah. We want to talk then about two big contributors to the mental load. And then toward the end of this, we're going to give what we think maybe are some antidotes or to help take some things off your plate. So, one is decision fatigue. Women make an enormous number of decisions in a day, from what's for dinner to when to book the dentist to how to respond to a child's meltdown. By the end of the day, our brains are fried. Not because we've done physical labor, which I mean, it's possible we have, but because we've made hundreds of micro decisions on behalf of other people. And this fatigue makes us snappy, depleted, filled with guilt for not enjoying motherhood. Okay, right now, midday for us, Kelly, I want you to let's list out decisions we've already had to make for the day or things we've had to do. I'll start because I threw that at you. Okay. I
Yes.
had to make breakfast for two children, lunch for two children, add things. So my husband's doing the grocery shopping, right? So he's physically doing it, but I had to create the list on the app of what to get. And then he asked me, "Is that all you want?" And I said, I added more on the app for you to get the things. Then I called my teenager to say, "Hey, you're going home. Make sure you let the dogs out. You have PT today. What else do you have today?" Talked to her about that. Had to get everything prepared today to come here to work and then decided in my schedule I'm going to run home in between sessions. I have a 30-minute window so I can grab snacks. So I get the boys because when I pick them up at 2 o'clock, they are starving, insanely starving. So, how about for you? And I had to give our animals water and feed our animals, so I had to feed a lot of mouths today.
So thanks for giving me a minute to think about what my day is because it is hard to even remember what I did an hour ago. But I woke up and made sure that my oldest was up and at him and not sitting on his phone so he can get ready for school. I promised him I would drive him to school. So I then get him out of the door quickly so I can drive him to school and back to make sure I get back so I can take Beckett and wake him up if he's not awake, make him breakfast and pack his lunch. All the while then getting myself ready because we had a recording today.
Yeah.
I then had to run to speaking of physical labor, by the way, I had to do physical labor this weekend because of the lake house, and we're still taking down wallpaper. And if anybody who has to add physical labor onto this, it is utterly exhausting,
Yeah.
and I'm not used to spending hours on end doing physical labor, but I removed the wallpaper. I had to return the wallpaper steamer to Home Depot. Then I had to run back home, get myself ready, hop on 2 calls, and then
Yeah.
to this.
So this is 5 hours into your day, Kelly, 5 hours into my day. And so we're a third of the way through our day and already just thinking about all the decisions we had to make. So
Yeah.
that is decision fatigue. Let's talk about another big contributor to mental load.
Which is emotional labor. Oh, I don't really like that word that much. It refers to emotional thermostat of home. And so this is keeping track of everyone's moods, soothe, encourage, smooth things over, whether it's constantly looking at that outwardly to everyone in our household and then trying to figure out how to cope with our own. We have to notice when someone's off. We have to hold the emotional well being of others on our shoulders. This is especially challenging for any of us who have teenagers, which
Mm.
it is awful where you say something and they bite your head off. And then I have to like try to figure out how not to snap back. Or when I do, then I have to figure out how to recover and be like, that's not the best who I am. Emotional labor is really very laborious
Yeah, well,
in
like you
a
were
household
saying,
of growing kids.
if you're the emotional thermostat and you've got a kid going from below 0 to 110 and below 0 and 110 5 times the day, and you're trying to manage that too, right? That is so
It takes such a
exhausting
toll. Yeah, it
because
takes a
we
toll.
feel responsible for everyone's emotions. And I remember thinking about this, right? Again, especially in heterosexual households, of the mother being like, oh, telling the husband, "Oh, you've gotta be careful, and I remember he had a sleepover, so he's really exhausted today," or whatever it is, "He had a cold, so he's grumpy." Like, also, I feel like we're mitigating that with our spouses. of, oh, my husband might be like, kids to listen, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, no, he had a really rough day at school today. I heard that he had a fight with his best friend. And then this happened. So I also think it's not just like with the children, but then being the go between sometimes with our partners as well, managing those emotions too.
Yes. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
keeping the temperature at the right setting
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And what I also notice in terms of that emotional labor is my spouse, and it's everyone's relationship is different, and so it depends on where this falls, but for my spouse, there is very little emotional labor happening, and I am so jealous of that. I and even the decision fatigue is not something that's happening. And so
Mhm.
it's not that I'm right and they're wrong or they're right and I'm wrong. I find it very fascinating that the whole concept of making sure everyone is happy or just having that weight, it's just not there,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
amazing.
And hopefully we are socializing our sons to be a little different, but it's so hard, right? When our husbands are Gen Xers and they were socialized differently. And anyway, whole side notes. So not only all of that, but default parenting. So I love the term default parenting, which has only been around for my, I've only been aware of it for a couple years because we used to say primary caregiver because it used to be like definitely mother. We'd say mother and then we'd say primary caregiver. But the default parent, I love that term. And even in egalitarian relationships, one parent, usually the mom becomes a go-to for all things. So they did a study recently where they emailed both, like it was like they were the school and they emailed, no, they were parents emailing school to say, hey, we're looking into your school. And they gave both email
Oh,
addresses
yeah,
and
yeah,
both parents' names,
yes,
and they
yes.
responded to the mom. And my
Yeah.
husband gets very pissed off if he is left out of text loops or email loops, and he makes me add him. But for whatever reason, even though both of us put our information on everything, I am ended up being the go-to parent. And so when a kid is sick, when a paper is due, when a question arises, when a plan needs to be adjusted, mom, 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 mom,
Mhm.
mom, right? And it's not just logistics, it's responsibility. The default parent holds the mental accountability even when not doing a task. I love this guy. We can add it in the show notes. He calls himself a recovering man child. He talks about mental load for women all the time. And he gave this very simple example, which I love so much. And his wife was in another room on the computer, and he had the 2 year old in a high chair, and the wife had just taken muffins out of the oven. And he was about to say, hey, honey, are these muffins cool enough for me to feed the baby? And he was like, I stopped myself and I realized I'm going to call her. She's to stop what she's doing, shift her focus, and look over at me when I could easily take the muffin in my hand and feel it and see if it's warm. And I just think that's such a great example of how we are
Mm.
called left and right for things when our partners or children, they could figure that out without us. But I have to laugh. I'm sure so many women, it resonates with them that they are gone and their children might be with their father, grandparents, 27 adults in the house, and they will be FaceTiming me and calling me and asking me questions when they're literally sitting by their father.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you're talking about that way, and I think it's a great segue into what is the solving for this, right?
Yes.
What are
We
the
found the
different
pain points,
ways,
right? Yeah.
yeah, that we girls, we feel you, man, we feel you. It's
Yeah.
really challenging, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I know
Yes.
this is really an ongoing challenge, especially because now Jess, I know mom always said you never stop worrying, but we
Yeah.
also see as our kids are going to be in college in a handful of years that there might be like a little bit less taxing weight on us in some way
Yeah,
because
the
they're not
default
physically
parenting
there,
component, yeah, I think would be reduced a little bit.
which will be great.
Yep.
But until then, how are we got to deal with this? How can we carry less without the guilt of carrying less? How do we share that load in ways that are sustainable? So there are 4 ways that we're gonna talk about. One is delegate the outcome, not just the task. So don't just say, "Can you pack the kids' lunch?" Say, "Can you own lunches this week? Shopping, prepping, packing." True delegation means you're not managing it anymore, that you literally are just cutting it off and pushing it over and giving it to somebody else to share.
Yeah.
This is about delegating the outcome and not just the task. An example of this for myself also is, so this isn't just about your spouse, but it's also your kids. Small little things. Today, ironically, before we recorded this, every single day I wake Beckett up if he's not awake after I take Wes to school, or he's already awake and I go upstairs and I always get him his clothes. So if I wake him up or I don't, we pick out the clothes and then he gets dressed on the couch in the living room. Every single day, this is our routine. Today, I was sitting enjoying a cup of coffee and having a snack, and Wes and Beckett was like, "Mom, did you get my clothes?" Nope, I did not get your clothes. I'm having breakfast. And that's all I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, so anyway, he got his own clothes. He went up and did it. He did it himself. So
Right.
that's
It's
part of this too,
simple.
is we do so
Yes.
much with coddling the kids.
Yes. And I think I love that. I still talk about that. We had that discussion with Megan Sumrell where she talks about that.
Yeah.
If you have to remind your kids, you have not gotten that task off your plate. And so I love that. Where, you know what's so funny? I traveled so much already the first quarter of 2025, and the kids got off to school earlier and made their own lunches when I was gone. And it's like they're
Yes, they can
capable
do
of
it.
doing all that
Yeah.
crap.
Yes.
And so it's not so I love that. And I think I have gotten so much better about like, I had to be very specific with my partner who's very literal, but when I have said that I will say, "I need you to take care of this," in that same way. Like, not saying, "Can you schedule an appointment for our child?" But I'll say, "I need you to completely take over this task for me." I need to verbalize very specifically how much of the task needs to be taken over,
Mhm.
and very luckily, my partner and I, we after about 20 years of marriage, made a lot of changes, and he changed his hours at work, and he has taken them to doctor's appointments, scheduled doctor's appointments, like things that he didn't do the first 15 years of being parents, of where it was like, "Listen, I need you to really step up." And there's a woman I follow on TikTok that did the same thing in her marriage, where it's this really needs to be taken over, or I'm going to break
Yes.
and we are not going to
Yep.
make it kind of
Yep.
situation. But
Yeah.
another thing that I love a good systems.
Yep.
So using systems and not memory. So get things out of your head. Use shared calendars, to-do apps, meal plans, whiteboards, whatever works for you.
Reminders.
Yes, the less you
Yes.
store in your brain, the more space you have for your own life. So I tell that to the kids, they know we have a family calendar. For my birthday, I got that giant skylight calendar, and my eldest is like super good at it. And so with my 14-year-old, if it's on the calendar, it's on the calendar, it's on the calendar. So like they're doing it and everyone's putting everything on the calendar themselves. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that for everyone.
Yep.
And we have different talks about meal planning and outsourcing
Yes,
different kind of
exactly. We'll put
things.
links to those
Yeah.
episodes in the show notes. I think one of the things that's really great too is to sit down with your partner and your family and list out everything you carry. I think we talked about this in a previous episode too about delegation, where,
Weekly family
ask
meeting.
them
Yeah.
how they can share the load with you.
Yeah.
Not a blame, but a partnership. Also, some of that I noticed I've sat down with my partner multiple times. 'Cause I think this is ongoing. And they're like, who cares about that thing? And you're thinking about it, you're like, that actually doesn't matter. I need to not put that as a
Yeah.
weighty thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just making sure that we're presenting it, like you're saying, as a partnership and not,
Yeah.
I do everything and you
Because
do
they want to
nothing.
help. They don't want you
Yeah.
to take this on either.
Yeah. And so I think that was, hard for me for a long time is how to present that to my partner and not when I'm at my wit's end. And so that's why we've had experts tell us over the years about that weekly family meeting of sitting down and saying, what do we
Yes.
have
Yep.
this week?
Yep.
And then this is what I need, this is what you need, and talking about it versus waiting until like 4:30 and then screaming at your partner, why do I have to pick the meal? You plan the meal kind of thing.
Yeah.
And finally, setting boundaries with yourself. It's okay to say no to things that add more to your mental labor. You don't have to be the room mom. You don't have to RSVP to every event. You don't have to fix everyone's feelings. Let good enough be the new perfect.
I
That's something
love
that I
that.
feel like I've done is simplified all of this trying to be this perfect Pinterest mom. And we're not doing it. Picking and choosing those things. I was doing that to myself a lot of times with the mental load. I was putting that
Yeah.
on myself
Yeah.
and it wasn't necessary to
Yep.
and even like giving yourself permission, like we always have frozen pizzas. Just different things where you're just like,
Yeah.
you don't have to make a roast
No,
turkey every night.
I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
You know?
Setting those boundaries has been important for me too. And it's really about also just pushing your kids to be more independent too, not just your
Absolutely.
spouse on this.
Yes.
I think that's a really important part of this.
Yeah, and I just wanna say I would just keep listening this month for all of the great stuff we're gonna be talking about, more about this, how to mother ourselves, redefining what it means to be a good mom. We wanna throw that perfection out the window, throw that illusion of what social media is telling us, and really getting down to how we can now research is telling us what helps a child thrive is when their primary caregiver is feeling happy and good. That is when children thrive.
Yep. And the first step of this on our journey toward feeling better is naming it. The second is choosing not to carry that alone anymore. And so we hope these tips will help you lighten your load and continue to find ways that you can get the rest you deserve and that your partnership is at ease and that you are feeling like everyone is helping out in your family. So, thanks for being here today. If this episode resonated with you, please make sure you share it with a fellow mom who might need to hear this so that she also knows you're not alone. Thanks for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe so you can hear our latest episodes as soon as they drop.
If you loved today's episode, share with a friend. Find us on Instagram, Facebook at Chasing Brighter, or check out our blog at chasingbrighter.com and follow us. If you want to know more about Kelly and I, read our blogs, find more tips, tools, and resources, check that out at chasingbrighter.com. Thanks. Remember, your best life is just a listen away.